In this lesson, I'm going to demonstrate the concept of the Java ToString method. So basically, if you want to represent any object as a string, the ToString method comes into existence. Okay, so the ToString method would return the string representation of that object. So for example, if you print any object, Java compiler internally invokes the ToString method on the object, and overriding the ToString method would return the desired output. And that can be the state of the object, etc., and depends on your own implementation. So the main advantage of Java's ToString method is that by overriding the ToString method of the object class, we can return values of the object. So we don't need to write much code. That's the main advantage of using the ToString method. So next, let me go ahead and demonstrate this so it'll become easier for you to understand once you apply this technique. So let's go ahead and open up our Java Eclipse editor. So once I'm in the Eclipse editor, I'm going to go ahead and simply create a new class. So right click on Java Introduction, choose New, and then click on Class. I'm going to call this my ToString demo and click Finish, and this creates the class called my ToString demo. So for instance, let me go to the public here for now. Just a simple class is fine. Next, I'm going to define int. Let's say we're creating this Java program that contains student name, roll number, and city, and so on. Okay, so just some sample or random data here. So int roll number, then I'm going to specify the string, call name, and then also the string type would be for city. And next, just do student and int roll number, string name, comma, and then of course our string city, and open our curly braces, specify this dot roll number because I'm using the same name, and recall from earlier lessons the concept of using this when we worked with setters and getters. So this dot roll number equals roll number, and also the same is true for the name equals name, and this dot city equals city semicolon, and of course we close the parentheses. And let me go ahead and fix up the student here. It's actually going to be the same as our class name, so it'll be my ToString demo. Much better. Great. Next, I'm going to create the public string, and here is where the ToString method would come in, which is simply going to override the ToString method, right? So I'm going to say public string and then use the ToString method, open the curly braces, and then return roll number plus our name, and then of course the city as well, right? So we need all these three things, semicolon, and then we close the parentheses. And next I'm going to go ahead and use our public static void main and use string and the command line argument with a set of brackets, and then open the curly braces. Here I'm going to specify my string, or rather my ToString demo, call it, let's say S1 equals new my ToString demo, and give some parameters. So let's say 101 would be the roll number, and the name would be John, and the city is Chicago, and of course this is also a string, so it has to be in quotations with a semicolon, and once again my ToString demo, call it S2, and this equals new my ToString demo once again, And for this next person, the roll number will be 102, comma, name is Chris, and the city is Austin. Great. So we implemented the ToString method here. Next, just do a simple printout. So system.out.println, and I'm going to print the S1. And again, here the Java compiler writes the S1.ToString method, basically. And I'm going to do the same thing with the system.out.println for S2. Great. Just fix up our syntax here. So Java recognizes that we're using the println. Same thing for the S2. Perfect. So if I were to run this program now, let me go ahead and run this so we can see the output. Save and launch dialog box appears. Simply click OK. And Java outputs the result as 101, John, Chicago, and then 102, Chris, Austin, which is exactly what we wanted. So the public ToString method is here overriding the ToString method itself. So once again, this method is useful and is used when we need a string representation of an object. And of course, we also defined this within this object class. We can also use the ToString method within our print, right? So instead of using these variables that I specified, there are a couple other ways you can also write this code. So it depends, let me get rid of this. So it depends on your own implementation of the code itself. Let me in fact demonstrate another example. It'll further clarify this particular concept and how to use the ToString method. So let me go ahead and simply create a new class. So scroll up, right click on Java Introduction, choose New and Class. And this time I'm going to call this as, let's say, point coordinates. A little different example. It's always good to do multiple examples because it reiterates and reinforces our learning. So I'm going to call it point coordinates. I'm going to create the point coordinates class, and of course our public class as well to demonstrate the ToString demo. So click Finish, and this creates our public class. I'm going to call it just the class. Remove the public for now. And here I'm going to specify, let's say, the private int, and recall using the private keyword from our earlier lessons that we can only use it within this particular class. So private int x, comma, and y, these are our two coordinates that I'm looking to work with. And next I'm going to use the public point coordinates, and int would be x and then integer for y. Open our curly braces, and of course specify this dot x equals x, and this dot y would equal y. Close the curly braces. Next, do the public int. We use the get x method. Open the curly braces, and then return the value for x. And return simply x, semicolon. And next, do the same for y. So public int, I'm going to say get y, open the curly braces, and of course repeat the return y. Now, once that's done, next I'm going to specify the ToString method. So let's go ahead and do public class and specify ToString demo. So now here I have again public class ToString demo. Open the curly braces, and of course use my public static void main and then string with command line arguments. Open the curly braces. So this is where I'm going to specify, or I'm going to override, right? So I'm going to say the point coordinates, call it point, would equal the new point coordinates. And of course, the parameter values would be, let's say, 10 and then 10, semicolon. And what this would do is simply going to use the default object class.toString method. Okay, so let me in fact write this comment here so we remember. So using the default object.toString method, and let's do the system.out.println, and within the println I'm going to specify the object ToString method and concatenate this with point, right? So I'm going to say plus point. Let's fix the spelling here. So instead of method, it should spell correctly. Perfect. Now, here we are going to implicitly call the ToString method on object as part of the string concatenation. So let me go ahead and in fact write this so it's easier. So we're going to implicitly call the ToString on object as part of string. And this is so that you remember, right? Concatenation. Perfect. And of course, I'm going to do the final printout again. System.out.println. Or before I even do the system.out, let me go ahead and in fact call the implicit value. So string s equals point, and concatenate this with our, let's say, testing, and put a semicolon. And now I'm going to use the system.out.println and simply use the variable call s. Put a semicolon. Perfect. Let's fix up the syntax here quickly for the println. So here, for example, we have the ToString demo as public class, and we're also specifying the public keywords as well. And that's why Java is saying, well, wait a minute here. Either you rename in the file or rename in workspace, because otherwise it's trying to link all the references for the local rename, and this would not change references in other files. So since we have our class point coordinates defined already up above, we don't really need the public class here, or we can remove the public static void, this line. So I'm going to go ahead and simply get rid of this and make sure we have the curly braces also removed to correct our syntax. So now our class point coordinates is complete, and of course our public static void main string and our ToString method is contained here, which is going to override with these values. So if I run this now, for example, let's take a look at the output, and that's important. So save and launch dialog box appears. Let's click OK. And notice it prints object ToString method point coordinates at the following location. And the second print statement prints point coordinates at the following location with testing. And that's exactly what we're telling Java to print. The points where the coordinate 10 and 10 for x and y respectively appears. And then for our second print statement, we're simply specifying to print the variable s with the testing. Notice in both instances, the point coordinates stay the same. The values are the same in both instances. So in this way, we can use the ToString method when we need a string representation of an object. So practice a couple of times with different examples, and let's move to the next lesson.